Bards love to sing of knights dying glorious deaths, bathed in golden sunlight, with weeping maidens honoring their valor. But the mud at the bottom of a river does not care about your vows. It only cares about your weight. There is no glory in drowning in full plate armor. In the political structure of Westeros, chivalry is a psychological tool. It is a concept invented by the highborn to convince the lowborn to bleed for them on command. But what happens when a truly honorable man realizes he is bleeding out in the mud for a lord who lied to his face? He doesn't run, and he doesn't surrender. He sinks into the abyss, entirely willing to drag his enemy down to hell with him. The year is 211 AC. A suffocating drought bakes the reach, leaving the landscape parched and cracked. Here we find Sir Eustace Osgrey, an impoverished old knight who rules over a crumbling tower while obsessively clinging to the faded glory of his family name. Eustace harbors a dark secret. He is a pardoned traitor who fought for the Black Dragon during the Blackfire Rebellion. For his treason, the crown stripped away his ancestral lands and handed them to his neighbor, Lady Rohanne Webber, the infamous Red Widow, a woman rumored to have poisoned her past husbands. When a raging fire consumes Eustace's forest, he immediately blames the Red Widow. Driven by injured pride, he orders his hedge knights to rally a pitiful militia of pitchfork-wielding peasants to march to war against Lady Rohanne's well-armed professional cavalry. One of those hedge knights is Sir Duncan the Tall. Refusing to let innocent villagers get slaughtered for a petty lord's pride, Dunk disperses the peasant militia. He chooses to ride into the stream and face the Cold Moat forces alone, betting his life on a vow that his own employer has already betrayed. Dunk and Lady Rohanne meet for a tense standoff right in the middle of a rushing stream. The churning water drowns out their words, masking their delicate negotiation from the respective armies waiting on the riverbanks. Rohanne demands justice. One of Eustace's men wounded her peasant, and she requires a blood debt to be paid. But Sir Eustace's fragile highborn pride absolutely prevents him from yielding or offering an apology. To bypass the stalemate, Dunk makes a drastic choice. He draws his own dagger, raises it to his face, and slices his own cheek open. He pays the blood debt himself. Even with the blood paid, the arson accusation remains. As a female political survivor surrounded by ambitious, violent men, Lady Rohanne cannot back down without losing face. To resolve the dispute without a massacre, she demands a trial by combat. Because two lords refuse to bruise their egos, the lowest-ranking honorable man on the field is forced to fight a brutal proxy war in the mud. Rohanne calls upon her castellan, Ser Lucas Inchfield, known as the Longinch. He is a massive, violent man standing 6'7", wielding a heavy, two-handed poleaxe. The Longinch's devastating weapon splinters Dunk's shield and dents his armor. The initial clash batters both heavily barded horses, knocking the armored giants out of their saddles and straight into the rushing river. Any illusion of a formal knightly duel evaporates instantly. Dragged down by the immense weight of their steel, the fight devolves into a savage, desperate wrestling match. To survive, Dunk taps into his raw, flea-bottom street-fighting instincts. Dunk tackles the Longinch beneath the surface. He pins the massive knight into the riverbed mud, holding him down until the bubbles stop. The Longinch drowns, but Dunk has taken too much damage. As water fills his own lungs, he blacks out. True combat in Westeros rarely ends with a clean, graceful sword thrust. It devolves into ugly, suffocating survival, where chivalric ideals are entirely useless, and the only things that matter are your weight and your breath. Days later, Dunk wakes up. He was pulled from the river by his squire and kept alive with primitive CPR by an ironborn maester. Having won the trial, Dunk expects a hero's welcome. Instead, he wakes up to a cynical reality. While Dunk was unconscious and dying, Eustace and Rohanne quietly solved their geopolitical problems. They canceled the war and got married. It is a bitter lesson in class dynamics. Dunk nearly died choking on mud, merely to buy time for a highborn contract negotiation. The lord simply signed a piece of paper, rendering his suffering entirely moot. Disillusioned by the hypocrisy, Dunk refuses any grand rewards. He accepts only a single lock of the Red Widow's hair, leaving the petty lords behind as he rides away into the rain. But Lady Rohanne Webber's story does not end with the old knight. She eventually outlives Sir Eustace, rises in power, and marries Lord Gerald Lannister. This line traces directly from the widow of Coldmoat into the heart of Casterly Rock. Lady Rohanne Webber is the great-grandmother to Tywin, Jaime, Cersei, and Tyrion Lannister. Shortly after giving birth to her fourth son, the woman who survived the drought and the trial of the stream vanished from the historical record under mysterious circumstances. Even for the most cunning survivors, the halls of the great houses often hide endings that no bard would ever dare to sing.